everyone, welcome to Technology and Livelihood Education video lesson. For today's most essential learning competency, we have prepare and cook meat. So at the end of this video lesson, you are expected to differentiate dry heat cooking from moist heat cooking. Number 2, identify appropriate cooking methods for meat cuts. And number 3, identify methods of preserving meat. So the topics to be discussed are as follows: methods of cooking meat and methods of preserving meat. Before we go on to our discussion, let us first answer this formula. So are you familiar with the Rebus method? Or read and examine by uncovering signs. So let us try. Those are the different methods of cooking and preserving meat. So do you have any idea of the different methods or the two major methods in cooking meat? Very good. Let us discuss it one by one. So we have the two major methods of cooking meat. The first one is through dry heat cooking. So cooking with dry heat is a process where food is exposed to a source of high heat, either from below or above, and usually in an oven. This form of heat brings food to a much higher temperature than cooking with wet heat. It also gives foods a brown crust or surface, which adds flavors. Okay, the second method of cooking meat is through moist heat cooking. Moist heat cooking methods use water, liquid or steam to transfer heat to food. So common moist heat cooking methods include poaching, simmering, boiling, braising, stewing, pot roasting, and steaming. Okay, so do you have any idea of the different methods of cooking meat through dry heat cooking? Okay, very good. Let us discuss one by one. Okay, so let us discuss the methods under dry heat cooking. So we have roasting and baking. Like other dry heat cooking methods, roasting and baking brown the surface of the food, which in turn develops complex flavors and aromas. Both words describe a method of cooking an item by enveloping it in hot, dry air, generally inside an oven and at temperatures of at least 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and often much hotter. A convection oven, which circulates hot air throughout the oven, can enhance the browning reaction. The next one is grilling and broiling. Rely on heat being conducted through the air from an open flame are grilling and broiling. Grilling cooks hot and fast because air is a poor conductor of heat. Broiling and grilling require the food to be quite close to the heat source, which in this case is likely to be an open flame. So examples of the um, dishes that are using grilling and broiling are barbecue and pork chops. Next is sautéing and pan frying. Sautéing is a form of dry heat cooking that uses a very hot pan and small amount of fat to cook the food very quickly. When sautéing, it's important to heat the pan for a minute, then add a small amount of fat and let it get hot as well before adding the food to the pan. This hot fat helps brown the surface of the food. So in other words, sautéing and pan frying is our ginisa. Okay, next we have deep frying. Since deep frying involves submerging food in hot liquid fat, it may take some time to get used to the idea that it's actually a form of dry heat cooking. But in cookery, it is categorized in dry heat cooking. Okay, we come now to the moist heat cooking. So we have first simmering. With simmering, the cooking liquid is a bit hotter than poaching from 180 degree Fahrenheit to 205 degree Fahrenheit. Here, we will see bubbles forming and gently rising to the surface of the water, but the water still isn't at the full rolling boil. Simmering cooks food very evenly. Next, we have boiling. The water reaches its highest possible temperature of 212 degree Fahrenheit. It's actually the least likely of the three to be used for cooking. That's because the violent agitation caused by the rolling boil can be too rough on the food and will often damage it. Next, we have steaming. Steaming is a moist heat cooking technique that employs hot steam to conduct the heat to the food item. So, what food is best for steaming? Any idea? Okay, we have siomai, siopao. Okay, very good. Okay, cooking with steam. Steaming can be done on the stove top with a pot containing a small amount of liquid that is brought to a simmer. The item to be cooked is then placed in a basket suspended above the liquid and the pot covered. Okay, lastly, for moist heat cooking, we have braising and stewing. Braising is a form of moist heat cooking in which the item to be cooked is partially covered with liquid and then simmered slowly at a low temperature. To understand the different methods of cooking meat, let us watch this video.
In this episode, I am going to cover different methods of frying with alternative healthy cooking tips and techniques.
us now come to the discussion of different methods of preserving meat. Why is it important to preserve meat? Okay, let us discuss the purpose of meat preservation. The purpose of meat preservation is to add to the length of time that meat is fresh, healthy, and bacteria-free for human consumption. Meat is preserved using many different processes. The process a specific meat is preserved under is largely determined by what the meat will be used for when it is consumed. Whatever the process, meat preservation is in place to save those who consume the meat from contracting foodborne diseases. Why preserve meat? Delays product spoilage, extends life of the products, improves product quality. Any idea of the different methods of preserving meat? Let us discuss it one by one. Types of preservation techniques: freezing, chilling, canning, drying, salting, irradiation, dehydration, and smoking. Okay, freezing. Since the time frame of World War II, freezing has become most popular way to preserve meat. Temperature. The ideal temperature to preserve meat is negative 55 degrees Celsius. Commercially, negative 29 degrees Celsius. Domestically, negative 18 degrees Celsius. Works by stopping enzyme activity and microbial growth of bacteria, yeast, and molds. Almost 98% of water freezes at negative 20 degrees Celsius. Complete crystal formation occurs at negative 65 degrees Celsius. Fast freezing produces better quality than low freezing. Microbial growth stops at negative 12 degrees Celsius. Disadvantages of freezing. During slow freezing, formation of large ice crystal damages the cell and results in a protein denaturation. Sometimes, the texture of meat changes by this process. Duration of frozen meat lasting. So for beef, we have 12 months. Lamb, 6 to 9 months. Poultry, 3 to 6 months. Pork, 6 months. So next, we have chilling. It is necessary to reduce the temperature of carcass immediately after evisceration to 4 degrees Celsius within 4 hours of slaughtering. There are two types of chilling. We have immersion chilling and air chilling. Immersion chilling, the product is immersed in chilled water. Air chilling, carcasses are misted with water in a room with chilled air. Air chilling procedure is safer than water chilling procedure with respect to microbial count. It helps to prevent denaturing of proteins. Next, we have canning. Canning is the process of applying heat to foods that's sealed in a jar in order to destroy any microorganisms that can cause food spoilage. Mainly two types: water bath canning and pressure canning. For meat, we generally use pressure canning that produces steam at 240 degrees Celsius temperature. During the canning process, air is driven from the jar and a vacuum is formed as the jar cools and seals. Drying. Drying may be done for the single purpose of dehydrating fresh meat for extension of storage. Drying and fermentation must go hand in hand to achieve the desired flavor and shelf life. Generally two types: sun drying, solar drying. We will use tunnel dryer and multi-collector dryer. The temperature must be 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. Here are the disadvantages of drying. Continuous evaporation and weight losses during drying causes changes of the shape of meat through shrinkage. Meat pieces become smallest, thinner, and darker in color. Texture of meat also changes from soft to firm to hard. The next method of preserving meat is irradiation. Irradiation does not make food radioactive, compromise nutritional quality, or noticeably change the taste, texture, or appearance of food. In fact, any changes made by irradiation are so minimal that it is not easy to tell if a food has been irradiated. Advantages of irradiation: prevention of foodborne illness. To effectively eliminate organisms that cause foodborne illness such as Salmonella and E. coli. Preservation: to destroy or inactivate organisms that cause spoilage and decomposition and extend the shelf life of foods. Control of insects: to destroy insects in or on tropical fruits imported into the United States. Irradiation also decreases the need for other pest control practices that may harm the fruit. Next, we have smoking. Smoking as a mode of food preservation is probably as old as cooking with fire. Heat and smoke infuse a delicate flavor into fish, ham, poultry, and meat, and can prevent the growth of microbes. While smoking done right is a very effective form of food preservation, care must be taken to avoid contamination of foodborne illness. We have the advantages of smoking. It kills bacteria and slows growth of other types of bacteria, adds some flavor to foods, prevents fats from developing a terrible taste, changes color, makes the food pleasing to the eye, and can last longer in shelf life. On the other hand, there's also a disadvantage of smoking. So eating too much smoked food can lead to some cancers. Next, we have salting and curing. Salted meat is preserved or cured with salt. Salting either with dry salt or brine was a common method. Salt inhibits the growth of microorganisms by drawing water out of microbial cells through osmosis. Concentrations of salt up to 20% are required to kill most species of unwanted bacteria. Advantage: it makes water unavailable for microbial growth, process that does not destroy nutrients. Disadvantage: produces concentrated form of food, inhibits microbial growth, and autolytic enzymes, retains most nutrients. Next, dehydration. Dehydration in food processing means by which many types of food can be preserved for indefinite periods by extracting the moisture, thereby inhibiting the growth of microorganisms. Advantages: it's the most nutritious way to preserve food. Enzymes, vitamins, and minerals aren't destroyed by high canning temperatures. Dehydrating food is a quick and easy way to preserve food. Glass, plastic, or metal airtight food containers can be used to store your dehydrated fruit, vegetables, and meat. Dried food doesn't need to be refrigerated. Disadvantages: dehydrated foods have different properties than fresh ones, and they can be less healthy. Dehydration is a process that removes water. Dehydrated foods are higher in calories per ounce than other fresh counterparts. It can be high sugar. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Ma'am Carla Samar, your grade 10 TLE teacher.
Hi,